Hey guys, this is going to be our video for our very first lesson, and that is for this guy right here. We are jumping into the world of robotics. So the purpose of this video is that we understand what a robot is, and specifically some of the parts of the robot that we will be using for our class. All right, so a lot of people have an idea that a robot looks something like from the Star Wars movies or the Terminators movies. A lot of times they look human-like, or they can speak and have conversations with us. Maybe think of C-3PO or R2-D2 if you know those guys from any of the Star Wars movies. But a robot is not necessarily what we see in the science fiction movies. A robot is really just a machine that can do things all by itself. And that phrase, all by itself, has a special word for it. And that word is automatically. So a robot is really just any machine that is meant to do something automatically. And I'm just going to scoot this guy out of the way real quick, and I'm going to set down my watch here. Because a lot of computer scientists kind of say that robotics really began with clocks, with watches. You can see, here's my watch, and it is, without me touching it or telling what to do, ticking away time automatically. So clocks, watches were really some of the machines that got us to do things automatically for the very first time. Clocks have been around for hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years. And so they've progressed a little bit, and that's kind of where we are. And we're going to pick up more modern kinds of robots than maybe a clock or a watch. The robot that we'll be using in our class is this. This is a Lego EV3 Robot. And it's a really neat system, and I want to show you some of the things that's on it. So in order for something to do a task automatically or a task all by itself, it needs to have something similar to the brain that's in your head, in my head. And on our EV3 robot right here, that's this big brick up top. This is called the control brick. And the control brick has this screen and these buttons and some other things I'm going to show you here. But basically, if you think about this control brick as the brain of the robot, that's going to be very helpful so that you could start using this. And it's going to be helpful because there's two kinds of signals that we need to understand. We need to understand input signals and output signals. Your brain, my brain, uses input and output signals all the time. So we have things like eyes and ears and a nose, and those things take in signals from the world around us and send those signals to the brain. And notice I said the word in. Those would be inputs, and our EV3 robot has inputs too. Our EV3 robot has ways that it can pay attention to the world around it and has little devices that will send signals in to the control brick or into its brain. And anytime I have inputs or in signals, right, those are controlled back here on the back of the robot with these ports, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So these are our input ports. And right now you can see that I have 3 input devices hooked up to that. And input devices, just like on your body, are going to help us understand the world around us. They'll help us see or hear or do something like that. So let's look at really quickly the input devices that are on your robot. The first one up here is called a gyroscopic sensor. So I'm sure you've closed your eyes and spun around as fast as you can before, and you can feel yourself moving, right? You have something in your ear that helps you feel when you're moving. And that is basically what this is. The gyroscopic sensor can tell if the robot is turning at all. So this would generate a signal that would go into the robot's control brick brain. So this would be an input device or a sensor. And that's that very first cable back here. And then the second cable, if I follow that, takes us to the front of the robot, to these things that kind of look like eyes, right? These are ultrasonic sensors. And an ultrasonic sensor is really neat. What they can do is measure distances to things. So they emit a high-pitched sound that you can't even hear, and basically time how long it takes for that sound to come back, which is exactly how dolphins or bats can navigate underwater or through the air, like through echolocation. This uses something very similar. This is called an ultrasonic sensor. Again, this is going to generate a signal that goes in to the robot's control brick. So an ultrasonic sensor is an input device. And we had one more cable on the back that is hooked up to input, and that leads us to this right here. This is a color sensor. Now, a lot of people think that this is like an eye. An eye can see an image or a picture of things. This really can't make a picture of things. What this can do is it can, when it's really close to something, it can tell what color it is, or it can tell how bright the lights in a room are. That's really what the color sensor does. And again, this one is going to create a signal that goes in to the robot's control brick brain. So that's why these three things back here are called inputs. So when your brain gets an input signal, like from your eyes, uh-oh, hey, there's something in front of me. I better stop my legs from moving so I don't trip over it. Your brain will produce a signal to send out to different things. Like it will send a signal out to the muscles in your legs to tell your legs to stop moving. We call those signals that start in the brain and go out, output signals. And the EV3 robot has some outputs on it as well. And those are the front ports. And those, let me get the wires out of the way here for you, are ports A, B, C, and D on the front of the robot. Those are our output ports, and you can see I have two outputs right now, and if I followed those, they would take you to something like this on the right side and something like this on the left side. And these are the large motors that are attached to these wheels, that control these wheels. So there are two large motors on your robot, one for the left wheel, one for the right wheel. And these are output devices because the signals for these guys start in the control brick brain and go out towards the motors. Your robot also has some other kinds of outputs. For example, it can create a signal and send it out to the screen right here. It can create a signal and send it out of the speaker on the side. So again, those are all kinds of output things. Just like with you, when you talk, that's an output. When you move your muscles, that's an output. Your brain is creating those signals and sending them out to different parts of your body. What I want to show you now is something kind of interesting about these wheels. These wheels, you might notice, and this is one of the most commonly asked questions I get, have these little tabs on them. And the purpose of those tabs is to help you measure things. So for some of our assignments, you are going to need to get your robot to move an exact amount. And so you might need to know how many times this wheel spins to go from one point to another point. So you could very gently push this robot and you can watch that tab spin and you can count how many times it spins. So I started my robot back here and it made it all the way over here, and that's one rotation of the wheel, and I use that little tab to help me out there. One of the problems that a lot of people have is they'll notice that their robot is not moving like it should. It is turning when it shouldn't turn, and I'm kind of making the problem just so I could show you, but that happens because right here, you could see that this piece has gotten loose and is pushing against the tire. When that happens, that tire will slow down and my robot will not behave like I want it to. So if your robot ever starts to misbehave and turn wrong or something like that, the very first thing you want to do is make sure all the pieces are pushed in nice and snug so that there's no more wheel rub. And I'm just kind of going around the robot and checking to make sure everything is pushed in just like it should be. So yeah, there's no more wheel rub. There's a nice little gap between the Lego pieces and the tires. So those are some helpful tips just to start out with about the wheel. All right, now let's go ahead and see how this thing operates. Okay, so to turn it on is pretty simple. All we do is push this button right here in the middle, and the lights will turn red. You'll see a message on the screen that says Mindstorms. If these lights start flashing orange, that is completely normal. It's supposed to do that when it starts up. And then you'll see a bunch of text scroll across the screen. That's just the robot booting up all of its different systems. So don't worry about that text or those orange lights if it starts blinking at you. This will take a minute, so I'll probably either speed up the video from this point or cut it out, and then show you the menu after that. Okay, the robot is all the way booted up, and this is what it looks like. So this is its main menu screen, and you can see we have some different options here. We have File Browser, Device Browser, Wireless and Networks, Battery, Open Roberta Lab, and at the very bottom we have About. For the most part, what we're going to be worried about is the File Browser, the very first one, and the Device Browser, the second menu, and the third menu, Wireless and Networking. Right now, we'll quickly show you some things. If I go here to File Browser, this is where all of the programs that you will create get stored in here. So I'll go ahead and open that up, and you will notice there's a bunch of directories in here. A little bit later on, you will create a directory with your name, and you'll see that end up in here. So someone is a joker and named there's Ben Dover. So there's Ben's full directory. I could kind of scroll through here and we could see different directories. Let's go ahead and get into my directory, the Conway directory. And you can see I have a bunch of different programs in here. One of the things you'll want to watch out for is you might open up this file browser to find your program, and you might notice that you are in the wrong directory. Let's say I did not want to be in the Conway directory, and I need to go up a directory. So the way that I do that, the way to get back to my main directory, is at the very top, there will be a little option that looks like ... That's the one that you want to choose, and that takes you up a directory. And there we go. I'm back into my home robot directory. So these are all the directories or folders here on my robot. Okay, so let's get into Ben's folder and see what that looks like. There's Ben's, and there's assignment 3, assignment 2. So Ben has a number of assignments in there. I'll hit that ... to go back up. And let's say I want to go back a menu to my main menu. I would just use this button right here under the screen to do that. Oh, and I'm sorry. I've been using these up and down arrows on the robot to select different things, and when I want to actually choose that thing, I use the middle button on the robot. But I'm going to go back a menu. So the escape button or the cancel button or the back button is this one right here under the screen. So if I press that, you can see I go back to my main menu. So I've got all my main menu stuff. Let's go ahead and just show you really quickly Device Browser. So again, I use my up and down arrows to select Device Browser and my middle button to select it. And you can see that I have a ports menu, a sensors menu, and a motors menu. If I go into ports, and those are all the plugs that we looked at a little bit earlier, you could see that I have port B and input 2 and output C and input 3. Those are all the input outputs that I was talking about. And if you wanted to find out more about what's attached to that, like here's output C, I'll select that and it will tell you, oh, okay, its technical name is port, and that looks like 16. And you can see that there's a driver name and tells you just some more information about that device. But we don't need to worry about that too much. I just wanted to show you that. To go back, again, I hit this button right here under the screen. And that's just really quickly what the menu on this robot looks like. Okay? Some things that we need to know about our robot so that we're safe with it. When it comes time to running a program, you never want to run a program when it's on a table. That's for safety. If you tell your robot to move and it's on top of the table, well, there's a very good chance that it's going to drive itself right off of the table. And then we're out of robot, and if it happens, and we might have to end up paying for a new robot, and right now we don't have a lot of money to buy a new robot. So we want to be really careful and not run our programs on the table. You want to make sure that your robot is on the floor if you run a program. Also, another thing, a lot of people like to take and spin really fast the wheels by hand. You can very gently take the robot and spin the wheel. Okay, like to measure distances, but you do not want to take and just push it as hard as you can. It's always a gentle push. If you push it too hard, you can damage the large motors. And again, damaging those means we lose money that we don't have. So I don't want to see us end up in that situation where we're out a robot. So please do not violently or hardly push. Just avoid pushing the robot's wheels as much as you possibly can. Okay? And that is, for the most part, a quick tour of our robot. So I'll show you how to turn it off now. It's also pretty simple to turn off. That button that took us back through menus, took us back in menus, is also our button that will eventually turn it off. So if I keep hitting back, I will get the shutdown menu, and you can see I have some options here. I have power off, I have reboot, and I have cancel. Well, I'm just going to select with my up and down power off, and then hit the middle button. And you will notice the lights turn red, a bunch of words come on the screen again, and it is shutting off. All right, well, I'm real excited for you guys to get to be able to use these things. I love robotics. I love seeing people learn robotics. It's always so much fun. It's a challenge, and I can't wait to see what you guys do. All right, thanks.